White House for a moment. Tyler Goodspeed joins us, the White House Council of Economic Advisors acting chairman. And anything you would add before we dig into the economics on this in terms of size and scope or timing of the package that we might end up with?
Well, good to be with you. I can confirm that the Treasury Secretary met with the Speaker earlier today to present our offer. It was a very good offer, very strong offer. It was actually closer to $1.9 trillion and included a reload of the Paycheck Protection Program. It included an employee retention tax credit. It included additional support for the airline industry, which has been particularly hard hit by this crisis. It included a second round of economic impact payments to help American households maintain liquidity as we continue this recovery. And it included additional support for schools to safely and fully reopen. So we think that this was a very solid offer, and it's up to the Speaker to be reasonable on this.
Close to $1.9 trillion, you say. Is $2 trillion a line in the sand for the White House, or, to the president's suggestion earlier, might you be willing to go higher than that if the circumstances were right?
So I'm not going to draw any red lines. I am going to say that the offer that we presented was on the basis of sound estimates of what the anticipated shortfalls would be, and also what would be needed to further help businesses and employees maintain their matches, to help people stay connected to their jobs, and again, to provide the support that households need as we get through this continued hard time.
I said I wanted to dig into the economics a little bit. Have you put numbers together and projections of about what growth might look like fourth quarter of this year, first quarter of next year, with stimulus like the stimulus you're talking about versus without, if nothing gets done?
Well, we've certainly done some near-term modeling, and I think certainly for the third quarter, we're looking at a very sharp rebound from the second quarter lows. When we're looking at equipment investment, when we're looking at personal consumption expenditure on the basis of retail sales in July, August, and September, when we're looking at the housing market and real residential investment, I think we're looking at a very sharp rebound in the third quarter, and that should continue into the fourth quarter. But the pace of the recovery would be substantially higher if the congressional leadership were to accept what we think is a very solid offer that the Secretary of the Treasury put forward earlier today.
All right, substantially higher. Let's talk about real people and what they might get out of all of this. What's the most important ingredient, do you think, for people who've been struggling, quite frankly? I mean, I was reading Axios, just as an example, put something out this morning talking about the people who most need the stimulus, and they talked about the long-term unemployed, 2.4 million unemployed for more than 6 months. And I know Mark Zandi was quoted there from Moody's as saying the long-term unemployment might peak when that number's around 5 million. A, do you agree? And B, more importantly, what on the relief side can be done to help those people?
Well, so one of the things that we learned in studying the aftermath of the 2008-2009 recession was the importance of maintaining job attachment, the importance of maintaining connections between employers and employees. And that's why in the CARES Act, we responded very aggressively with the Paycheck Protection Program, with an employee retention tax credit, and with pandemic unemployment assistance to the self-employed, to sole proprietorships, to help them maintain those matches. And now, as we transition from survival to recovery, we are very much focused on encouraging a continued labor market recovery. And that's why even months ago, the president was proposing a full payroll tax holiday. And unfortunately, Congress was unwilling to act on that. But even in the absence of action from Congress, the president engaged in presidential executive actions to provide temporary payroll tax relief. And now with the offer that we put forward today, we provided a reload of the Paycheck Protection Program to help continue to maintain those connections between employers and employees, and also an expanded employee retention tax credit to help people stay connected to their jobs. And we think that that is going to be the most important thing to make sure that the labor market recovery continues and the temporary job losses in those horrific months of March and April remain temporary, and that people are able to go back to their employers.
Final thing outside of what we're talking about now, before I let you go, in terms of other areas that we might get some relief or stimulus for the economy, how about a coronavirus vaccine economically? How much stimulus would that add, do you think?
Well, certainly solving the pandemic would be a tremendous fillip to the U.S. economy and indeed the global economy. And I can say that we have made tremendous progress on that front through Operation Warp Speed, with multiple candidates now in phase 3 trials and with the production capacity in place so that we can ramp up production once one of those candidates is hopefully approved. But in addition to that, we've also had unprecedented use of emergency use authorization. Indeed, remdesivir is one prime example of that, with the president signing emergency use authorization for multiple advanced therapeutics, and that is why we've continued to see the case fatality rate improve, to see deaths continue to decline even as cases rise. And also we've seen the president continue to deploy the Defense Production Act, including over 100 times, to provide the PPE and additional medical equipment that we need to combat this virus.
Tyler Goodspeed, Council of Economic Advisors, live from the White House North Lawn.